Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the new system within Gems of War of Deeds. This is something that was added a week ago from version 4.5. There were two main changes that were basically incorporated with this. One is that all adventure board tasks, or at least these bottom three, will always be the same for everyone now. So regardless of what platform you're playing on, these bottom three should now be uniform for every single player. And the main reason for this is to make sure no one really gets more deeds than someone else. Deeds are a new resource that are used now in order to upgrade kingdoms further than level 10. There are two different levels that level up a kingdom. One is the power level. However, there's also a kingdom level. This, for the longest of times, has been locked at 10. But now it is finally capable of being able to reach 15 with deeds, and will likely be extended to 20 in the future, also likely using a combination of, course, gold and deeds. Do keep in mind, as far as the cost for each one of these, is that they are cumulative. So, for example, this 515,000, 28, and 28 yellow deed, and 8 of the Imperial deed, this cost total is the total for getting the entire upgrade all the way to 15. It is not simply just for the 15 upgrade, so that would be all the upgrades to fully max it out, not just a single one. So as soon as we were to go do another one, it would get rid of that cost from this, and then that would just show that that costs 100,000 and 6 deeds. It is not the full amount. And yeah, this is as far as the cost is associated with it. As far as the actual kingdom stats, we have ourselves 3 different bonuses that we end up getting it from getting beyond 10. The first one is the kingdom bonuses. There are 2 kingdom bonuses that basically apply now. The previous one and now this new one. It goes to 4 different levels. One that you get as low as 6, another one that you get at 9, which most people, of course, likely already have. Another one that you get at 11, and then it maxes out as soon as you get it to 13. This applies with the other bonus, and both of them do stack, and both of them do increase by the pet battle. There are very few kingdoms in the game where you would just go out of your way to directly go for it. However, this is something to consider when spending your deeds on various kingdoms. Another one that is pretty sought after, and what most people are probably upgrading their kingdoms based on, is the 50% to factions. This is specifically to the Hoard stats. So what I mean by that is it's not just a 50% extra stats for delves, it is simply the number that is over here underneath your Hoard. Whatever number is over here is what it would specifically increase by 50% if you were to have it upgraded. Obviously, if the kingdom does not have a faction associated to it yet, then that bonus will do absolutely nothing. So generally you do want to try adding them primarily to kingdoms that already do have that a bonus applied to them. Other than that, there is the third bonus that we end up getting from this, and that is from the having it maxed out. At 15, or at least what is currently maxed, will give 1 additional stat. Obviously, this is mainly most noteworthy for magic. The other 3 can kind of be interchangeable however you want. However, magic is insanely good, and of the magic-related ones, that of course are Silverglade, Karakoth, Zhul'kari, Blighted Lands, and Darkstone. So those are probably the 5 most noteworthy ones. 4 of them being purple, the only one not being purple being Zhul'kari. So with that being said, let's just go and do this D task. So this is something that can pop up. They have about the same rarity as any other D task. There are 3 of them, a epic one, a legendary one, and a mythic one. All 3 of them can run on any colors. This ends up giving 1, 2, 3, and then of the browns, and then gives a Imperial right at the end. So we'll just go and clear through these real quick. They're pretty straightforward, just like any other battle that you would end up doing on Adventure Board. Nothing really specifically unique about them other than the fact that they just give a lot of deeds, which are extremely sought after at the moment, just because the current only way to obtain these scrolls is randomly off of the Adventure Board. It is the same randomness for everyone now, however. So that will help make it a little bit more uniform so no one really goes too far ahead. But that is the only way to get it, other than occasionally through a little bit of money. But they are putting a cap on how many times you could buy it, so no one's going to be able to pay to win just to infinitely buying up every single kingdom. Realistically, you should likely take a little bit over a year, they said, in order to get all of them upgraded. And based on the beta, we haven't had deeds available yet until they fix like getting everything uniform for everyone. And apparently they have now, so that does mean we should be getting them at a pretty decent rate, because I remember back on the beta they were not necessarily every single day, but definitely you definitely get it at least a few times a week, and sometimes even see multiple on a given day of various colors. But take out the kill, go get our last little Imperial there. Imperials, they aren't really going to be it feels like they're going to kind of be like celestial trait stones in that the quantity that you end up getting of them is pretty much higher than the number you're actually really going to need. Of course, we get one from this, and the mythic tasks ends up giving 2. And given that you only need currently 3 per kingdom, you're definitely going to max it out pretty quickly. And they're also interchangeable in that every single kingdom would end up needing it, just like how every single legend and mythic ends up needing those celestials. Well, let's go throw this down, key it down, and just kill it out quickly that way. And oh no, he didn't die immediately. And he's going to get a summon on us, really. And then we'll go over which kingdoms you actually need to go and use these on. There'll also be a link in the description that might be kept up to date. Chimera ended up making up a list earlier today, which is pretty convenient, since it's probably going to be kept up to date and makes for a pretty nice reference point. But I still wanted to mention some other things with it, because that list didn't specifically mention kingdoms that are good for their actual stat bonus. And there we go, getting our first Imperial Deed. Actually counts as a mythic resource as well, and we'll just grab that. Okay, so as far as kingdoms that you want to upgrade, obviously there's 3 main points you want to go and center that around. What bonus the kingdom has, which is generally the least useful one. The mid-range one of usefulness being what faction is associated to, and the most important one being what stat it has. However, that's only particularly important if it is a magic stat. If it is any other stat, then not so important. And currently, magic only exists 4 on purple and 1 on green. But anyways, let's start off with purple then, given that they are pretty good. Of the purple kingdoms, there are 4 of them that you are going to want to do. One of them, and probably the best one to go for, is Silverglade. Silverglade is associated to Silver Necropolis underneath the Delves. So you're going to want to get that in order to be able to get yourself a better bonus for that if you're keeping it as your farming kingdom. And other than that, it's just the best one of the ones that currently have a magic as far as which delve they are associated to. The actual stat bonus from it, you're probably not going to be using too much, however. The other pretty good one is Darkstone for a similar reason, in that it does have a faction associated to it. In this case, the All-Seeing Eye faction. All-Seeing Eye, again, one of those kind of things where, or Darkstone in general, where you're not really going to be using the team bonus, however, you really want that +1 magic from it, and it just happens to have a faction associated with it. The other 2 that are underneath purple that you're going to want to do are Blighted Lands and Karakoth. Neither of these have a faction with it, and neither of these have a good kingdom with, or a good team bonus with it. However, they are both a magic stat, and for that reason, you are going to want to go for them. Next up, we have ourselves green. Green, the only really big one that you want to be going for right now, and pretty much the only one, I would say, is Zhul'kari. And the main reason for that is it is a magic stat. Some other ones to consider, though, after you've done Zhul'kari, definitely do Zhul'kari first. The other ones after that would be Zaejin. Zaejin has the that one Amethrax kingdom associated to it, but the main reason you'd actually want to upgrade is not necessarily for that, but because of the team bonus for once. Zaejin has the team bonus for goblins, for all the goblin-related metas and various teams, and even if you're just using a truffle with one other thing, you still get the bonus, but obviously more so for the 4 times kind of teams when you're using like Nob and Brothers with Fizzbang with like 2 other options. Generally stuff like that. You'd end up getting a lot more stats from it, from having a team of 2, 3, or 4 from the kingdom, and for that reason, given that goblin teams are not the most common of things, but still pretty solid and generally used for at least 1 guild war defense, it is definitely something that you're going to want to consider as your second pick for green. Other than that, 2 other ones, though neither of them particularly good for going for, but if you somehow have already gotten enough deeds by then, Forest of Thorns and Bright Forest. Neither of these are really going to be that good, however, with their faction association, they might be worth considering. But other than that, they're not really going to be used for much compared to the other 2. Next up, we have red. Red, there is only 1 viable kingdom for the most part, just because that is the only kingdom that has a faction, and this would be Mist of Scales. Mist of Scales team bonus you won't really be using, but you will be using it, of course, for the faction association. As far as the anything else, if you happen to have already gotten that red one and you're looking to try to get another red one completed into the future, the next one that you probably want to go to focus down is Dragon's Claw. Dragon's Claw doesn't currently have a faction associated to it, but the main reason you'd want to use it, similar to Zaejin, is that it has a really good team bonus that goes with it, specifically with all the dragons that are from that kingdom. So if you're using like Dragon Soul, Dragonian Monk, or any other combination from that kingdom, it would end up getting the full amount of bonus. Which is pretty common since it's ran in almost every single dragon-related team using multiple things from Dragon's Claw. So something to consider after you've done Mist of Scales. Next up on blue, you may have noticed I've already been upgrading Merlantis for blue. However, this was before the most recent faction came in, and I would say Leonis Empire is probably the best one to go for now, since the most recent faction is of City of Thieves, is actually the best farming faction in the entire game. So if you're using that as your farming faction, definitely go and start getting Leonis Empire upgraded, and go from there. So Leonis Empire probably wants to be your first one. If you're not farming Leonis Empire, next up is probably Merlantis. I feel like Merlantis has a little bit of an edge on it if you're not using it for the faction bonus. Both of them have a faction associated with it. However, the main benefit with Merlantis is you tend to use multiple Merlantis troops within teams, because there's a few submerged synergy teams and blue synergy teams that end up working with it, as well as with the hero class. So you'd actually be able to use the team bonus from it. Whereas Leonis Empire, you're not really ever going to be using the team bonus that much. You're mainly just using it for the faction, and that's about it. And of course the stat. Every single one of them uses it for the stat, with the magic ones just being the most relevant. Next up though, also for blue, there's two other ones. Sword's Edge still has a kingdom associated to it. Of course, you're not really going to be running Crypt that much, and most people probably already have it done, since you can do it without any additional stats. However, Sword's Edge still technically has a faction associated to it for that purpose. And other than that, if you don't want to go do Sword's Edge, there is one that currently doesn't have a faction associated to it that is extremely good for its team bonus as well, and that is Stormheim. The main thing that makes Stormheim good, of course, is the fact that Titan resides there, and Titan is currently the best overall hero class in the entire game. And there's also decently good troops within this kingdom, like Yarrow Firemano, Fire Giants, and Hindla, Frost Crown. So with options like that, there's quite a few 3 times, 4 times, or even just simply 2 times teams that you can end up getting for a little bit extra bonus. And you can end up utilizing those, since it might be really common with Titan overlap. Next up, we have ourselves Yellow. Yellow, the main one I would say for this is to go into Pan's Vale. Pan's Vale ends up feeding over to the faction of, wow, I forget his name off the top of my head, even though I farm it every single day, the Warrens. But yeah, Warrens I currently keep as my farming faction. Some people still might too, either as well. Though City of Thieves is much better if you are making the switch. But if you're still using Warrens as your farming faction, Pan's Vale is the thing that is associated to it for its bonus. Again, team bonus you're not really going to be using, but the faction bonus off of it is the primary reason you would end up picking this up. Next one in that regard is probably going to be Suncrest. Suncrest, again, you're mainly just using it for its faction. It has Stormheim, not Stormheim, the Stone Song, Airy. Attached to it, which ends up giving it the little bit of faction bonus for that. Nothing that's really going to be viable, but again, it's still a faction bonus, and anything that has a faction bonus is still going to be a little bit better than the ones that don't have a faction bonus. And other than that, there's White Helm. Again, not really going to be using a kingdom bonus that often. However, because it's associated to all of Guardians, which is a faction, is considered decently worth picking up. And now the final one is the one that we actually just got trait stones, or the extra deeds for today, and that is Brown. Unfortunately, at this current moment in time, Brown is the most useless of all the deeds. It's basically the exact opposite of a purple. There are currently 0 kingdoms in the game that end up using brown deeds in order to upgrade. This obviously makes it pretty useless for the most part. However, there are 2 kingdoms that don't have any faction or anything like that, or not even any good stats, but still have a bonus that you might end up utilizing, and those 2 are Dhrak-Zum. Dhrak-Zum mainly because of Glaceon plus Bloodhammer combo. Glaceon plus Bloodhammer is a pretty common, if you're ever building a Doomskull related team, combo to have within that Doomskull related team. And for that, you would end up getting slightly higher stats if you were to have Dhrak-Zum upgraded. So I am considering that. Of course, the other option is just save every brown deed you have and just wait until we finally get a brown faction. But if you do want to use it into something, I would say Dhrak-Zum is probably your best bet. Other than that, there is one other option that is somewhat okay for it, and that is Urskaya. Urskaya, mainly because the bonus that I would end up giving applies to the Sentinel hero class, the hero class from that area. And it also has 50% mana start that it could end up utilizing from the Urskaya troop that ends up giving 50% mana start to all Urskas. So for that reason, it does technically have Kingdom Synergy. So again, that's one of the things that you end up getting from upgrading these things, upgrading these kingdoms, one of the 3 main perks. So you might want to get Urskaya for that reason if you're planning on using Urskas. Otherwise, it's probably a lot more common that people are running the Doomskull-related Glaceon plus Dhrak-Zum. So if you want to put into something, Dhrak-Zum I'd say is your best bet, but Urskaya is also an option. And the third option is save every brown and just wait. And that is pretty much everything with it. If you still have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below as far as how to effectively use deeds, and I will always make sure to go and answer those when I can. Other than that, in the link in the description, we'll have a full list that should hopefully be kept up to date. Not 100% sure if it will, but at least at this current moment in time, it is up to date. So I'll be leaving that in the description as far as which kingdoms have factions associated to it. It does not mention how viable the team bonuses are, but you can kind of just infer on your own based on what troops are within the kingdom, or simply ask on this video. And other than that, we did end up getting one thing today, and since I'm not streaming or anything, I guess I'd probably mention it, and that is they did finally give connection issue compensations. As you guys know, last Saturday, due to the whole Amazon thing, it ended up crashing their servers for several hours. I think it was like 7 hours that we weren't able to play for, which was really unfortunate, but they did end up giving some compensation for it. For endgame players, it's probably less than you would have gotten off for Tribute and stuff like that, but it was beyond their control and they didn't really have anything. So it's still nice that they end up giving some amount of compensation, and pretty generous one too, overall, I would say. But yeah, we did finally get a little bit of compensation for that. But anyways, if you still have any other questions about deeds or how they function or what on earth they do, feel free to leave it in the comment section below and I'll make sure to answer them all. Thank you all so much for watching and have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone!